Welcome to the Gateway, your compass through the magical waters of spirit communication, broadcast live from United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM New Orleans. I'm your host, C.L. Thomas. I hope you had a great week. Mine was pretty good, and today was especially good because it's my birthday. So here I am spending my birthday with you wonderful people, my listeners out there. One of the things I like to do is go out into remote areas, into ghost towns and things like that. So I did a fun thing a couple of days ago. I took a metal detector out to this place called Rhyolite, and it's an old ghost town outside of Beatty. And I just went to look for some old coins and things. And you know what? I found a handful of clad, which is current money, nothing old. But then I found an old Canadian penny from 1860. Can you believe that? So, and this town isn't even supposed to be from the Victorian age. It's supposed to be turn of the century. So it's very interesting. I also found a handful of buttons and little metal clasps and things like that. It was kind of fun. It's a hobby I picked up from when I lived in Nashville. I used to be able to find Civil War artifacts and things around my yard. It was pretty cool. But what does it have to do with tonight's guest? So nothing really. But on the other hand, I love to visit old ghost towns and haunted spaces to see what I can pick up from things such as remote viewing and the spirits of the past. It's just a hobby. I love doing it, and it never fails that I go into this place. And what I'm talking about is if anybody can pick up one spirit. So what you do is you go into an old place and you just see what you can pick up, see what you take in, sit quietly and invite spirit in and see what you pick up. My guest tonight, he's an author and a seer and a remote viewer. And so he's going to talk about using remote viewing and mediumship and things related to mediumship. Rick, welcome to the show.
Well, happy birthday.
Thank you. I'm getting too old for birthdays.
Well, you're never too old for a birthday. Come on now.
I don't know. There's a certain point where you reach, I'm not at decrepitude yet, but I'm slowly creeping up there, I feel like. So I don't know. But
I got you. Well, I actually, I want to get older. The older I get, the more mature I feel. I want to get gray hair. It's really weird. I just want to get gray hair. Isn't that crazy?
It's really not that bad because you have a lot more experiences and things. The older you get, you harbor all of this life experience, and it makes you wiser in a way. But then I'm looking back going, I wish I would have known that 20 years ago. So it's kind of like I wish it was the opposite. I wish you were born with all the knowledge and then you kind of lose it as you get older.
Oh, I got you.
But I don't know.
Yes.
Kind of like Benjamin Button, I guess. If you've ever seen that movie.
I actually metal detect myself. So I do every chance I can, so which is cool.
You do? It's a fun hobby, isn't it?
It is fun, exciting.
So Rick, I want to get into you. So according to your bio, you didn't start having paranormal experiences until later in life. Is this true?
Correct. I started actually having experience after my first paranormal experience. That's when things started happening for me. Beforehand, I might have had some experiences, but I didn't understand them. I didn't know what was going on. I just blew it off. But when I started getting into paranormal, then things started changing for me. See, as a kid growing up, I used to have nightmares all the time. I used to sleepwalk all the time. So what I would do is I would get up in the middle of the night, not know where I'm at, and I'd fumble all over the place, or I'd be chased by something I thought was an actual, back in the day, would be a demon, people thought. But really what was going on with me as a kid was I was actually experiencing spiritual connections to spirits around. They were trying to communicate with me, but I didn't understand it. I didn't know what was going on. So when I started getting my first paranormal experience, something opened in my head, something opened in my mind. and it said, Rick, you can communicate with these people. And after that first experience, I stopped having the nightmares. I stopped walking in the sleep. Something changed, and it opened up something in my brain saying, listen, those things in your house that are actually trying to, mess with you or play with you, those are actual spirits saying, listen, Rick, you can talk to us. You can communicate with us. I didn't know what was happening. I was always raised that was demons, but it really wasn't. It was just spirits trying to communicate with me.
So you didn't have that kind of guidance. Very similar to me too. Growing up and having paranormal experiences, there was no TV shows, and nobody in my family really knew how to guide that. So how old were you?
How old am I now?
No, how old were you when you had that experience as a child?
Oh, when I had the paranormal experiences, well, basically the spirits coming and communicating with me throughout my whole childhood. See, my mom was a reader. She could read coffee grounds in a coffee cup. And then my ancestors, they're all gifted. Some are healers, some can see, some can feel, some can actually sense things, because we have Cherokee Indian in our genealogy. So it's always been around. My mom used to do this all the time and read fortunes all the time growing up with everybody else. My brother used to do it with he'd put he'd light an actual lighter, and he'd actually put some spoons out. He'd actually see flickering in the spoons, and he could read about your energy and stuff. So things were like that happening. But I thought it was all a joke, but it really wasn't. It was really happening. So things were happening to me through my whole childhood, even from a very young age. Things were happening to me. So paranormal has been in my life, in my first, second, and third book. Matter of fact, in my third book, I talk about all those paranormal experiences growing up as a kid. But see, at the time, I just thought it was natural. I thought it was just normal.
So that book, that's the 11th Child, right?
Correct. Yeah, the 11th Child.
So what was it like when you realized that these were just spirits and that they couldn't really hurt you?
Well, the thing is, when I first started doing the paranormal, honestly, I wanted to communicate so bad with spirits. I wanted to talk to them. I wanted to, help them in any way I could. But the thing is about it, I didn't know how to do it. So I had to go out every night, every chance I could to try to communicate with the spirit. And like I said, I was just asking them, being polite. I was singing to them. I was giving them time and energy. That's when things started happening for me. My gifts started developing. My paranormal connection started developing. I started hearing them. I started sensing them. I started seeing things. So, but I was putting the time and energy into it. See, before when I was younger, I wasn't putting time and energy. Things would happen. I really didn't pay attention to it that much, but it was happening around me.
So what was the turning point? Was there like one specific incident that kind of hit you and said, oh, this is what this is about?
Well, I just started watching the paranormal show, The Ghost Hunters. So it was exciting. We were recording it, we were watching it, and my son said, hey, Dad, let's go check out the old house down at the end of the road. So we went down there, me and my son-in-law and my son and some other friends, and we went down there. It was all boarded up. You couldn't get in the house. So I walked around the house, and I looked up on the second floor, and there was a shutter door that was open. And I was just kind of copying the Ghost Hunters. I said, hey, if there's any spirits here, close that door, and it honestly closed for me. But nobody saw it but me. So I told everybody, and they just kind of blew me off. So I went back home, got my recorder, came back to my son-in-law, and I actually came back to the house, and the door was closed. And I said, if there's any spirits on video camera, I said, if there's any spirits, open the door. I said it twice, and it opened so crazy. It's creaky.
Kind of like a movie.
Yeah, so that was my first awakening. And that really got me into the paranormal, was that video. That awakened me at that point. From that point on, I have given almost 20 years to the paranormal and to the psychic world.
So you've been in it for a long time.
Yes.
So what was it like for you learning how to connect with the other side?
Well, go ahead. What'd you say?
So you go through this period of you are learning that you have these certain abilities. And first of all, what are your abilities? And then second of all, what was it like when you began to connect with that other side and you knew that you could connect?
Well, the thing
was
is,
it? Go ahead.
Well, I'm listening.
No.
Go ahead. Well, the
Go
thing is,
ahead.
I didn't have any abilities. Okay, I was just actually taking a camera and I was snapping pictures and a video camera trying to capture things. Had no abilities. I just was interested and things were happening for me. Every time I went out, I would capture something interesting. I would actually capture some walking on the audio of the video camera. Back then, I didn't have an audio recorder. I only had the video camera, but I could listen back on the actual video camera, and I could hear the audio, and I could hear walking on the actual video camera. And then I would see weird things. I'll see things go across. Back then I thought orbs was everything. Orbs was spirits. Back then because I was just learning. Now I know that it's a lot is dust. A lot of it's dust. But the thing is, I was just learning. Every time I went out, something interesting would happen for me. I would actually start hearing voices out of my ear. And then I got a recorder, audio recorder, and that's where my real obsession in the paranormal started, was the audio recording, because I would leave my recorder at haunted, or I would not say haunted, but abandoned places. And I would leave my recorder there overnight. Then the next day I'd come and I'd pick it up. I would hide it somewhere in the house where nobody would see it so they couldn't steal it. Then I'd come back and I'd listen to that audio. Things were happening for me. I was starting to hear things. And the reason why I was hearing things, before I even got in the paranormal, I had a thing called Bell palsy, where my left ear, I was actually having issues and I couldn't hear. Okay. It was to a point where I had a bad earache and I was doing some stuff to try to fix it. But it got to the point where I was eating the inside of my ear. So I went to the doctor and they gave me some hormone pills and built my ear back up. And then I started hearing this, had a special hearing. But that was before I even got into paranormal, but I had a special hearing. So whenever I got with the audio recorder, I was hearing a different frequency than other people, because in my left ear, I was hearing at the age of a 13-year-old. In my right ear, I was hearing at a 35-year-old. So I was testing this on a computer. I would test, the sounds for a 13-year-old, what I could hear, and then the sounds for a 36-year-old. And I could actually tell I was hearing it better in my left ear than my right ear. So on this audio recorder, I was actually capturing spirit voices. But what was driving me crazy is nobody that was in the 30s, my age, was able to hear it, because they couldn't hear that frequency. But I knew it was there. And I said, listen, it's right here. But I would show them on a program. This is where I got a lot of my believers. I would show them on the program. I would show them on a program what was going on. And I would say, okay, now, right here's where the actual spirit voice comes on. And you can see it go up. You can see it go up and stuff. And I would explain to them, okay, this is what I'm hearing. And then they would be shocked because they could really hear it. Now, some people say, hey, you're putting that in people's minds. But I tested that over years and years. I would test it, and I would take a group of people and I would actually have everybody listen, write down what they're hearing. And then I would actually tell them what's being said. And certain people that are gifted could actually hear the same frequency I was hearing. So I thought that was kind of cool that a gifted person can hear the same frequency. They hear at a different level than a normal person. And that's what was exciting about my EVPs. I was hearing a different frequency than other people, and they were talking to me. They were communicating with me. But when I first started, I had bunches of voices coming through. I was getting like probably 30 EVPs a minute. Now that's
Oh,
crazy.
wow. That's a lot.
I know, and it was taking over my mind. I had thousands and thousands of EVP, but nobody else was hearing it but me. I felt so alone. It was kind of scary. You know what I mean? I was by myself, but I'm telling you, I could hear clear as day spirits talking to me.
Did you think you were crazy?
Didn't think I was crazy, but it got to a point where, I was actually trying to work on missing person cases with this ability to hear these special, and working with the police department and stuff. I was able to hear things that was connected to the cases. So no, I wasn't crazy, but it was scary going to a police department saying, listen, this is what's on this audio. And they were not hearing it, but I'm hearing it. And I'm actually talking about a missing person case. It was scary because I was doing multiple cases. So they're thinking, hey, hold it. Whoa, whoa, whoa. He was just up here in this town. Now he's over in this town. That's kind of fishy. You know what I mean? So I was scared. I thought they was going to arrest me.
Well, you worked hand in hand with the police force in missing persons? Have you found anybody?
I used to work with a psychic network. It was a big network, okay? Whenever I started getting a lot more of my gifts, I started getting a little bit more connected. I started sensing things and feeling things. I started working with a big network of psychics. And the thing is, what they would do is they would take all these psychics. You had to actually join their group. You had to put a fake name on there. And what they would do, they'd have an admin, a couple admin. They would actually take all the information that we were picking up, and then they would take that information and then they would take it to the police department. That's how it would work. What they would do, they would watch for. They wanted to watch for similarities from one reader to another reader. So if I'm picking up a red car and she's picking up a red car and she's picking up a red car, then most likely there's some kind of connection to a red car.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it was. I was on this psychic network offering all this information. I did get some amazing stuff. I did connect with a lot of people that actually were taken away or were kidnapped. I got direct connect information about where they were found, how it happened, and stuff like that. But I never did ever find an individual. But I had enough information if I knew the location, but I didn't know the location. So it really didn't help much. But I had the ending, what was happening. You know, I saw what was going on before their actual passing, where they actually were buried and stuff. But I didn't know where that was. But I had surroundings where what was happening. I knew exactly what was there. So it was kind of cool to be able to see that on the news. You see a picture, I'm like, oh my goodness, I gave all that information.
So remote viewing is a huge part of mediumship.
Yes.
Can you talk about how, like you just mentioned that you guys you're in that group or you're picking up, everyone picks up a red car or something similar. That's remote viewing, correct?
That's 100% remote viewing. And the thing is about it, what was so interesting on this certain individual that actually she got murdered and stuff. I saw remote viewing is seeing something from another distance you've never been to. You know, you've never been to another town or another state you've never been to, but you're actually able to see it in your own living room and describe it to another individual that's in that town or in that city when you're doing it right in your own living room. So that's remote viewing. You can see something from a distance that you have no clue about. So what I did, I saw an actual 3 crosses, a large cross and 2 crosses. And that said she was buried to the right in the woods. So when they actually found the individual, and the killer ended up telling where she was, but no psychic found her, but the killer, took him. So, but the main picture they showed was that cross, that big cross and the 2 crosses, and they found her to the right in the woods. So that is remote viewing. I remote viewed what I was seeing. Now, sometimes I like to say, as a seer, I see through people's eyes. Okay. I feel I connect that way somehow. I feel we all have a guide or a spirit guide or a guardian angel, and everybody has one. So I feel whenever I go to connect with an energy or a past loved one or a missing person, I'm seeing through their guide that's coming through. They're giving me information about them, or I'm seeing through their own eyes what's going on in front of them, which is kind of amazing to be able to see certain objects or certain things, and that helps a police department to get closer to a body. You know, if you see an old abandoned caboose, an old rusty old abandoned caboose, you know what I mean, on the side, and then all of a sudden, boom, they find a body by there. That's that's the same thing as remote. That is remote viewing. You're seeing something that's connected to that person, and I feel that I can see through their eyes, or I can see through their spirit guide. Their spirit guide will give me information, and guardian angel will give me information about them. So it's kind of cool.
Remote viewing is so interesting. I've been able to remote view. I'm actually pretty good at it. And there, not only with cases like that in the paranormal, but also in my private life. And it's happened 2 times that actually dictated where I would even relocate to. For instance, I had just graduated college and I was looking to move out of state. I was in Pennsylvania at the time, and I was looking. I think I was trying to decide what school to attend for a graduate school and med school. And Vanderbilt was one of those schools in Nashville, Tennessee. And I had a dream because I couldn't decide where to go. There were several places that I could have gone to, and in the dream, I was in a big park, and right across this busy street, there was a 2-story bookstore. And for those who are really familiar with Nashville, you know that was West End. That was there's a big park in the middle of West End, and right across the street is a big bookstore. I had no idea that existed, but when I went to visit the school and everything, it's right there on the campus. It was just amazing. I knew that's where I was supposed to go. So yeah. So does it happen like that in your personal life?
Well, you know, not really. But the thing is that what's interesting is how I used to do this, how I used to do remote viewing. See, when I first started, I didn't know it was remote viewing. I didn't know what was going on with me. When I first started my journey, I was seeing objects around people. Okay. When I first started my journey, I would actually take my recorder and I would say, I'm going to see a horseshoe drive. And in the middle of the horseshoe drive is going to be a beautiful heart shaped rock. So I would see this, I would drive to my next job, and there I am on that horseshoe drive. And in the middle is that big, beautiful heart shaped rock. So, see, I was kind of like, some people say that's a premonition. Some people say you're seeing the future. That's kind of like remote viewing, what you're seeing ahead of time,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of cool. But what I used to do, which was kind of cool, is I used to go lay in my bed and I used to go in like a little mini sleep. It was not completely asleep, but a mini sleep. And I would go into towns. I would go into cities, states, countries, whatever. And I would go back in time. Back in time. I would see things. And whenever I woke up from this mini sleep, I would write down, what am I seeing? And I would see stuff. Let's say, for instance, I would see stuff in Egypt, or I'll see stuff in London. I would see exact things like objects, or things that are there in the actual country or state, which is kind of cool. And I've never been there before, and I got a little obsessed with that. I'd love to go in the afternoon, just sit down, lay down, and go into this little mini sleep. And then I would go into old towns back in the 1800s and see things. And that was part of my ability to connect with past lives. I was able to connect with past lives after a certain period of time of doing remote viewing. What people were telling me was remote viewing. I started actually doing past lives, which is really interesting because you can actually see a person's past life, how they lived their life, how they died, what they enjoyed, all that stuff, what haunts them, what they're scared of, all that stuff is happening in their past life, and it's happening in their current life too. So it's kind of like an amazing experience to have somebody look at you and say, oh my goodness, you're obsessed with Annie Oakley. In your past life, you were Annie Oakley. And in this life, you're obsessed with Annie Oakley. You're an excellent gun shooter. You have portraits of her throughout your house. That's how I was connecting with past lives. That's kind of cool.
That is really neat. So have you ever done a past life regression?
No, never done one. I actually was told past life. Wait. Now, I have done that one time. I was in one of my first paranormal events I went to. They did a past life regression. They wanted you to go back as a young child and go back in your womb and go back before that. And the thing is, I never really made any connection to it. Maybe I didn't believe in it, so maybe it didn't work for me. But I don't do past life regression for people. I do past life reading. So there's a difference from past life reading and past life regression. Regression, you're going back, you're seeing trauma and stuff like that. I'm actually seeing who they were in the past, which is kind of different.
So how can that help a client in the present day?
Well, let me explain that. Okay. For instance, I was actually not remote viewing, but I was actually doing a past life reading for a young lady. Okay. She said, please give me a past life reading. She was my first person I actually did a past life reading. I said, listen, I don't know how to do it. I'm a remote viewer. I remote view things, but I'll give it a go. So she never told me anything about her. And that's what I like. Nobody ever tells me anything. As a matter of fact, I had a fake name, had a fake profile. Everything was fake. But I still connected with her. And what she said, I connected with her and I said, listen, I see you back in the 1800s. I see you on a wagon. I see you being chased by the Indians and you fall off the wagon and break your neck and you die. So she said to me, you're not going to believe this. She said, I've been to over 10 doctors and I can't figure out the pain in my neck. I can't figure it out. They can't figure it out. There's nothing wrong with me, but I have chronic pain in my neck and I have massive headaches. Then I explained this to her. and gave her the information what I was seeing and other things connected too. Honestly, the next morning she woke up, no more pain. She knew that was from her past life, and somehow it healed her. It's really kind of cool.
So she was able to make a some kind of closure from a past life
Exactly.
into present day life.
And then she moved on. No more doctors, no more issues. So,
Do you do paranormal investigation?
yes.
Using do you go through different places and try to pick up where the activity is most prevalent?
See, when I first started doing that, I used to bring a pad of paper and I would walk through a location and I would write down what I'm feeling in this room, what I'm feeling in that room, and what I'm feeling in this room. I don't do that anymore. I should do that. I should always do that, do a walkthrough beforehand. I like to leave it up to the people because I have usually 10 to 15 people that come to my events. And what I do is I host a gallery reading and then I do a ghost hunt with them. Now, I'm really good with EVPs. So whenever I bring a crew in, 99% of the time, there's going to be one or two that might hear what I'm hearing, which kind of helps me to validate that I'm actually real, telling the truth, which is kind of cool. But I'll do these EVPs and shock people because the voices are there. They're just not able to hear that frequency. And I still don't understand why they're not able to hear it. But whenever I bring the information forward, they get shocked and they jump back because it's there. It's very clear, but it's almost like I have to release it. I don't know how it is, but I have to actually offer the information to them to a point where they can hear it then. But some people that are gifted, like I said, if they're in the group, I'll ask people, what do you hear? And there will be one person over here will hear the same thing I'm hearing. That validates me that, hey, yeah, we're hearing the same thing. So we're hearing the same frequency. And if you think about it, we're all different ages. We probably never listened to an audio. You know what I mean? There's different variables in listening for an EVP. If you've never listened to any, and here I've listened to over 3,000.
There is.
You know what I mean?
There is a certain art to it because I noticed that as well. First of all, you have different recorders. The newer recorders tend not to pick up those frequencies. They're actually tailored to only pick up not so much background noise and all that sort of thing. So you're less engaged to get that EVP because, again, it's a very narrow frequency that it's allowing to pick up. Those are all, like new model Sonys and things like that. I've noticed that the older versions from like 10 years ago are the ones that seem to work, and it's because the frequency is wider on those. So there's that going on. But then when you do pick up the EVPs, again, you really do have to learn how to listen for them because a lot of times they're not class A EVPs, they're whispers, they're in the background. You really have to listen in order to pick them up.
And I think go ahead, keep going, I'm listening. Go ahead.
I think a lot of times modern day investigators who are who grew up watching the TV shows and things like that, they're used to immediate activity, and that's just not how it happens. It's really not in your face a lot of times when you're at these places.
Well, let me explain something to you, Ashley. If I just lost my train of thought here, but
sorry.
I just gonna say something, I lost it, but it was something about EVPs. But the thing is about EVPs is what's interesting is, yeah, okay, I got it. It's coming back to me. When I first started doing the EVPs, and I was doing a lot of them, paranormal groups would send me their audio recordings at their locations. Okay, I have that special hearing, so I'm able to hear that frequency, what the spirit's saying. I would give them exact details about their night because the spirit is actually telling me what they're seeing, and they're telling me on the recorder. I would give them direct information about what was going on, and they're shocked. And a lot of times, whenever I give them the information, they might hear one part of the EVP because that's at their frequency. So I might say, I killed, but then I'm going to hear the rest of it. I killed the 3 little boys. See, I could hear that. They can't hear that because that's not at their frequency. That's only at my frequency. So it's kind of interesting. When you do EVPs, sometimes when you put it on a program, you can have a flat line on the program. Everybody's going to pass that up. You can't pass that up. There is actual voices in that flat line. There's a frequency there where you can actually hear spirits talk. It's really cool. Really cool.
It is really cool. Does that change the investigation, the evidence? You know how investigating groups, they tend to rely on like a storyline or something that they picked up maybe from history or whatever it is, or maybe a piece of evidence, maybe to get a child's voice or something, and all of a sudden they piece together this entire story. So when you go in there and tell them, this is what I'm hearing, there's more to this. Does that change the way they're looking at the investigation?
Well, you know, what's interesting, I think, you know, a lot of these boxes now that are out here and stuff, it makes me worried because, you know, I could say something to Alexa, she knows everything in the world. I mean, these boxes, I'm worried about these
Yeah.
boxes. Trigger words get trigger names, you know, things and cities or whatever. I think trigger words, they're set up that way. So, but it's interesting because I did the Phasma box. You ever heard of the Phasma box?
Yes.
I took that out at a location, and it was the general is the one that owned the place. His name, he was general. His name was General. I don't know exactly his last name, but he went by the general. Okay, so I put the Phasma box on, or Phasma, or something like that. I put the box on, and we started letting it do its little thing, you know. And then all of a sudden, I said, "Who's here?" And it said, "The general." Now, that's kind of cool to get exact information about the place that's connected to the place. But now, is it actually picking up because we were talking about the general? Is it just going to refresh the information on the program? How do you know that's not happening? With an EVP, though, you don't have that. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's why I only use a recorder when I go usually at a ghost hunt. I use a recorder and a video camera. That's it.
I'm with you on that one. I don't allow any of the phone apps at all.
Yeah, those apps,
when I go to investigations.
don't like them. The ghost apps and stuff. A lot of those I just don't like them. They put a ghost in a corner, or they make this. I'm like, okay, I don't sense anything. I don't, even though I might be wrong, but there's no ghost in the corner. You know, I don't see that. But it's, and even like that, you know, that stick thing they came out with a stick thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the LS or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
That
The
thing,
LSR.
yeah, it just picks up an object and it makes it look like an actual human figure. Now, when you take an empty space and then all of a sudden, boom, there's some things doing that. I've seen that happen before. So is it right or wrong? But if you have a trash can, or if you have a person standing over here and another person is going to pick you both up. So yeah, I don't understand that, how it tracks that stuff. And it's just kind of weird, you know what I mean? Kind of weird, but you know, a lot of people believe in that stuff, but I honestly, I want the real evidence. I want, and what's really cool, whenever I go do a ghost hunt with people, I have the ability to hear real-time voices. Now, a real-time voice is, we're talking right now, then all of a sudden a man comes in and says, "Hi, Rick." That's a real-time voice on our video, and it's only us here. I kept it all the time when I do readings, when I do private readings, or I do readings for people. Spirits will come on and talk in real time, and I will hear them, and I'll say, "I just heard a person say, 'I love you.'" And everybody in the chat room is like, "I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that." Then I'll play the recorder back, and there it is. "I love you" on the recorder. And it's on the video too, but they didn't hear it because they didn't hear it that same frequency.
So Rick, I want to talk about a little bit about your journey. You said that there was a time in your life that you call it My Paranormal Journey, One Man's Obsession. And I think that's one of your books, isn't it?
Yes, that's my first book.
Can you talk a little bit about what you mean by one man's obsession?
Well, put it this way, you know, I felt alone, kind of, because I was hearing obsession means I was obsessed with EVPs, okay? That's what was going on with me. I was so obsessed. It was to a point where that recorder, matter of fact, my recorder right here, never left my side 24/7. I would sleep with that recorder. I would have the recorder next to my wife, have her snoring or whatever, and try to capture her voice, or next to my kid, or next to my dogs. It was a bad obsession. I go out to dinner, the recorder was there. I go hang out with my kids, the recorder was there. I was constantly listening to EVPs, no matter what. And it was taking over my life to a point where I would actually go into customers' homes. I work for a day job I work at, where I measure a lot of different homes, some old, some new. But I would go in their house And they would hint to me, hey, you know, I like paranormal shows. Well, then that gave me an opening to talk about it, which you can't do that in people's homes. So I would do recordings in people's homes, and then they would turn me in and call my boss, and I'd almost lose my job. Almost multiple times I almost lost my job because of recording in people's houses. That's how bad my obsession was. Matter of fact, one time I did it for a lady. I recorded in her house. She was bawling her eyes out. Everything was coming through. Because see, what was happening is I was doing the EVPs. My real gift was coming as a seer. So it was like the EVPs was getting me warmed up. And then boom, I was a seer. So I was getting part of my gift coming through so I could get an audio and my gift to help somebody in a house. So I was picking up, I said, I sensed there's a guy that died on your porch that drank 10 cups of coffee. And she's bawling her eyes out and said her dad died there 6 months ago. And he used to drink 10 cups of coffee a day. So she's bawling her eyes out. So I walked to her house, and then I went home, and then she told her husband turned me in. And next thing you know, cops are knocking on my door the next morning while I'm out working. My wife said, what did you do now? So it was bad. It was to a point where I almost lost my job. My wife was about ready to divorce me because all I talked about was EVPs my whole life. That's why it was a bad obsession for me, because that was it. I put that over everybody. That's why spirits came to me, because I gave them 125%, and I kind of avoided my family. And I wasn't there for my kids. My son would actually put a sign on the door, Dad, I don't want you here. You're not allowed, because I wasn't there for them. It's kind of sad.
Yeah. So first of all, how did you come to realize that you were spending too much time seeking the dead and not spending enough time with the living? And then how did you decide to change that, and how did you?
Well, it's very simple. One day we got kind of a blizzard, and I went out on my normal route, and I decided to go and put my recorder on an old abandoned schoolhouse. So I had to walk through like 3 foot of snow. I put my recorder back on the ledge, hoping to capture a voice. That's how obsessed I am, right? So then I run it back to my car, and I realize that I'm on an angle and I can't get out. So a gentleman came around the corner, and he says, listen, I can get you out. Here's the change. Let's see if we can get you out. I hooked him up his side. He said, give it gas. I gave it gas. I couldn't move. Never moved at all. So he said, well, you better get on and call a tow truck. So I called the tow truck. I'm on the phone with the tow truck. Another truck comes around. I said, listen, I can get you out. Hang that phone up. I said, no, I'm on with the tow truck. I just had a guy. He said, don't worry about it. I can get you out. But this time, don't give it gas. So do you get that? Okay. So how do you know about the gas? Right?
Right.
So he hooked up. I hooked up with his truck. Never gave a gas. He pulled me right out. I bring the change back. Thought it was kind of weird. I come back to his truck, and he hands me a brochure about God. And he says, stop doing what you're doing. Then I started thinking, what am I doing? Well, I don't have any family. I'm not spending time with my family. I'm treating them bad. I'm not there for them. I'm not at events or anything. You know, I'm getting in trouble with my job. I have the worst luck in the world. Bad things are happening for me. So I started thinking, what am I really doing here? So for the next 30 days, I had an awakening. God came into my life and said, I'm going to leave you a Bible, and every time you think about an audio recorder, I'm going to leave you a Bible. So whenever I go to think about audio recorder, remember, I'm getting 32 EVPs a minute, right? So I get to thinking about the ghost hunting again. I would see a Bible at the gas pump, a green Bible. The next time I thought about it, I'd be in the store or something. There's a green Bible at my feet. There was 30 green Bibles for 30 days. Pretty soon, at the end of the 30 days, I was not hearing any EVPs. I couldn't hear one voice on a recorder. I was about ready to throw it away, but that's when my real gift came of seeing. I started seeing things and actually talking on the recorder and saying, okay, I'm going to use this now to see the future. So I said, I'm going to see this. I'm going to see this. I would give like 5 descriptions of things, and I would look throughout my day, and boom, there it would hit, there it would hit, there it would hit. So it got to the point where I was at 35%, 50%. When I got to 75%, I said, I can use this gift to help people. That's when I went on Unexplained Mysteries on the internet, before Facebook, before MySpace. And I went on there and I said, let me see what's around you. because I was seeing objects. I was able to see all these objects. That's how I started my journey. That's when my journey changed. That's how it started. I got really, the EVPs was still around me, but very, very rarely. It was more now I teach people about EVPs instead of actually having to be there 24/7, you know?
Hmm. So you no longer, do you still investigate?
Oh yeah. Oh, I still
Or,
do ghost. Yeah, but I don't, I don't go out and do, EVPs anymore because I know the spirits are everywhere. No matter where you
Mhm.
go, after a voice. So I don't even do that anymore. I mean, when I do ghost hunts, that's one of my big things, EVPs. I do a thing called EVP circle. So I get everybody together and then I'll have each individual say something. And then I will actually have them pause in between and then we'll listen back on a recorder. And that's where I capture all these EVPs, which is kind of cool.
Do you think that you had any kind of spirit oppression during that time when you were being bombarded?
Well, I feel that spirits were kind of attaching to me to a point where I was, I would go to a graveyard and I was really not very smart back then. I just wasn't very smart. I didn't know about protection. I didn't know about praying to God to keep spirits away from me, negative energy and stuff. So I would say, listen, there's the corridor, come hang out with me. I would invite spirits into my energy and I would bring them home. Things would happen at my house and stuff. So I'm bringing them home. Guess what I'm also doing? I'm bringing in their energy. I'm bringing in their thoughts. If they're depressed, I'm being depressed. You know what I mean? If they're angry,
Mhm.
I'm being angry. So yes, I was bringing a lot of that home and it was affecting me and affecting my relationship. Most
Yeah.
definitely.
So whenever you go into these places now, how do you assess? Is it just praying to God to protect yourself, or is there a way that you actually shut off your abilities?
See, I have this thing called full control. See, whenever I was having so many issues with my job and doors were actually opening on my job, lights were turning off in front of customers at my job, things were happening at my job where it was going to get me fired. I was making mistakes at my job because things were happening. So I just said to the spirits, I said, listen, I don't want to connect with you until I need to connect with you. Please give me privacy. And I'm telling you, from that point on, I never had any more issues. I can turn it on, I can turn it off. Whenever I go anywhere, I don't have any connection to any spirits, any past loved ones, nothing. That's not part of my energy. None of it. I won't, mess with somebody else. I won't go up to somebody and say, listen, I see this around here, I see this around you. I don't do that. So if a person comes up to me and said, listen, Rick, my mom died. Can you connect with her? Then I'll ask for a first name and then I'll connect with that individual. That's how I do all my readings. I'm a direct connect reader. So I direct connect by just their first name of an individual. And the same with their energy. If they want me to connect with their energy, I'll offer. But see, I never bug anybody. I never look at anybody. I can go in a whole room of 80 people, 108 people the other day at one of my events. I don't feel anything. I don't see anything. I don't sense anything until I'm actually need to do it. So it's kind of cool. Gives me a life.
Yeah. So I do have a question that came in. How do you decipher what is your feelings versus a spirit's feelings?
My feelings or a spirit's feelings? Well,
Yeah.
honestly, whenever I go into a place, if I'm actually, I usually, I really, like I said, I don't do ghost hunting like I used to do. So I don't actually go there and, you know, how I used to do it, I would go into a place and, for instance, I would actually feel like pain in my stomach. Okay. I would feel just a sharp pain in my stomach. And then I would do research and the person ended up dying with some kind of abdominal issue. Okay. So I was feeling things because it would hit me hard. When I would feel an actual energy or spirit, they sometimes would go right to my body. I could actually feel their presence and they would go through my body and it would take my breath away. So that's what was happening to me. I know that's how a spirit is connecting with me because they will go through my body and I can actually feel them going through my body. It would take my breath away and I would lose a lot of energy. And that's when I knew something was going on. When I used to get in trouble with houses because that was happening to me. And I had to walk out of the house and take a breath because spirits were actually connecting with me. That's how I knew they were actually connecting with me. My own thoughts and their thoughts, it has to be, if I'm connecting with a spirit, it has to be, if it's at a haunted location, I feel it has to be connected to the place. or somehow connected to somebody that's connected to the place. So I won't know if that's my energy or their energy until I actually do research. I don't have that ability to decipher and say, okay, that was a spirit coming up to me. And, I don't have that. When I do readings, the same thing. I am a seer. I'm not a medium. I'm not a psychic. So I don't talk to your dead loved ones only through audio. I don't actually talk to them that way, but I can see them when they were alive. That's why I call myself a seer. I see their energy when they were alive on this earth, and I see their pain because I'm an empath, or I feel their pain. So I go through all that. I can go through all that, and I know that's them because it affects my body to a point where I'm hurting. Like if it's a heart attack, if a person dies of a heart attack, my heart will honestly hurt. If I have back issues, really bad back issues, I know that somebody had back issues. I will actually feel that strong as an empath to a point where sometimes I have to leave a reading and take a break because of it's so strong sometimes. But that's how I can tell because it will attack my body to a point where I'm kind of like the individual. I'm kind of like living the individual's life when I'm actually doing a reading. So I'm kind of feeling their pain. I'm feeling their headaches. If they have issues with, hearing things or issues hearing things or issues, with their head. Let's say, I don't know, I'll just say, for instance, they can't remember things. So I will feel, I'm starting to forget things, or I'm not able to see this, or I'm not able to feel this. I'm kind of like I'm misplacing things. It's almost like I'm actually being part of that individual when I do the reading. Does that make any sense?
Yes, it does. Does that ever affect you physically?
Well, honestly, I've had 5 strokes. Okay. So when I first started this, I thought that maybe reading like 5 or 6 people that had heart attacks was affecting me to a point. I really felt it was affecting me. But as I learned and I got better at it and understood it better, it was kind of like they're using my body just to show me something, and then they let go. And that's what it is. They want to show me, okay, I have a heart issue or I have a lung issue. They want to show me that I have brain aneurysm. They'll give me all the information, but I'll feel the pain. I'll feel the pain in the head. Even if they get shot in the head, I might feel exactly where they got shot. So I'll say I'm feeling pain right here. I feel like a bullet went through my head. So yeah, so that's exactly what I actually do feel it. But I've been doing it. I've done over 12,000 readings, so I'm still doing it. I'm fine. I'm not dying.
That's really interesting. So tell me about your other 2 books. I know you have your Paranormal Journey, One Man's Obsession, and we just talked about that one, but you have 2 more, The Awakening of a Seer and The 11th Child. Can you talk about those?
Well, see, The Awakening of Seers basically goes from my paranormal journey. I stop the recorder. I start using the recorder to start seeing the future or remote viewing. In my second book, I talk about going on all these websites, trying to understand what was going on with me. I didn't know what was going on with me. And honestly, at the time I was doing it, really nobody knew what was going on with me. They all thought I was code reading people. But you got to understand what a code reading is. And I was not doing a code reading because I didn't have the actual individual in front of me. I didn't have their name. I didn't have a picture of them. I was giving them direct connect information to them. So I was not code reading at all. But in their minds, a lot of skeptics think that's code reading. Anytime a person reads somebody, they think it's a code reading. So I would actually test people on these websites. This is what this book is about. Me going, how I learned how to become an actual gifted seer, how I got taught by certain individuals, how I got trained by certain individuals. Some individuals would watch me in these groups and they said, listen, Rick, I really think you have something going on with you. So let's go ahead and do this privately and let me test you. And they would test me by remote viewing. They would test me by, showing me a picture of something and see what I would actually see. I would be tested on actually just a piece of land. They would actually show me a picture of a land. And I would tell them what I see, hear, and feel. So it was kind of interesting to have these people around. There is some people out here that will guide you. There was one individual that had the ability to turn off blenders, turn on blenders, start a car. There's some very gifted people. Can levitate. They really can levitate. They can actually change the color of a room, whatever or color you want it. If you want it blue, they'll change the whole room blue. There's some very gifted people. They are silent and they stay away because I don't know exactly why. Maybe because they don't want the fame or something, but they just stay away. There's some very gifted people out there, and I've met some of them, very talented. But I'm telling you, It's the second book is about me going through all the process, about me actually starting out going to paranormal events, and about me how I learned how to do my remote viewing, how I learned how to do past loved one readings, how I learned how to do past life readings. All that's in my second book, how I learned to become a seer. That's why it's called Awakening of a Seer. In my third book is all about my memories as a kid. Now, I just wrote down every memory I could remember from every house I lived in. So it's basically, instead of chapters, it's house. So my first house, Coldwater, Michigan. Then my second house, Franklin Street. And then my third house, Martha Hill. They're all based on the houses I lived on and the activity or what was going on in my life. You know, I got bullied a lot. I got picked on a lot. You know, I had a horrible childhood, but you know, honestly, I felt it was good. But to other people, it was a horrible childhood. Then when they read my book, they're very sad because of what I had to go through. There's some really crazy things that happened in the book 3 that people might be interested. One day, I'll give you a story. One day I came home. I was first 5 on the basketball team. One thing about my life is my mom moved a lot because she had no money and she had 11 kids and she moved a lot. So when I get settled into school, I'm doing really good. She would move to another school. So it was really, really kind of hard on me to go from school to school to school because I got teased, I got picked on and stuff. But one day I came home, first 5 on the basketball team, got the girls after me. I'm doing great, doing awesome. Come home, walk down that road, dirt road, cross the old swinging bridge, walk up the creek bed. And then I realized nobody's there. My mom had moved 35, 40 miles away. It didn't tell me. She just packed everything up and moved. So I had to find a ride, figure out where she moved. It was just, that's how my childhood was. It was kind of a shock to most people. It's a shock, you know. How did I survive that? I mean, the emotions, the feelings, you know. I mean, I went through some really ups and downs going from these other schools and stuff and being really high here and then being at the bottom at another school and being treated bad and picked on and beat up and stuff. It was kind of rough. So the actual book is talking about my whole childhood, all my memories. I remember being on the basketball team, my first girlfriends, and you know, traveling to Kentucky or to Ohio, and all these places. My experience of what happened to me. That's what it is. That's what the third book's about. So it's kind of cool.
Well, where can people find your books?
They are available on Amazon and Kindle.
Okay. So it's interesting that you say that about your childhood because I feel like a lot of people that have abilities such as yourself, they've been through some kind of life tragedies of some sort or some kind of challenge.
Right. And
would you say that's true?
Go ahead, hon. Go ahead.
I said, would you say that's true?
I would say 100% that's true. And you know, honestly, growing up, I feel I've had multiple near-death experiences. I think that has made a big difference too. One time I actually went in a heavy flowing river that was after a flood. I jumped in and I remember trying to get up on the bank. It was all clay and I just went under. And I don't remember anything after that, but I ended up waking up like 25, 30 feet up on the bank. Nobody's around, by myself. Who saved me, right? I went underwater. I was a goner, 100% a goner. I was just a kid, but I was a goner. But I woke up. I was on land. I was saved. I was in my third book. I talk about in Kentucky, we used to ride in the back of a truck, and we used to all ride in the back of a truck, and we was going 65, 70 mile an hour. And then my brother hit a bump and I flew out of the vehicle, over the vehicle, and my brother grabs me by my ankle. And I'm like an inch away from the actual road. I could have easily died, but he grabs my ankle and pulls me back up. I mean, I have some really crazy stories in there because I've almost died multiple times, but somehow I'm still here, right?
Thankfully.
Yes. This, you know, I'm happy with what has happened to me. You know, I'm happy to be able to touch so many people. I'm happy to be able to help so many people. And it's amazing. If you ever come out to one of my gallery events, I'm really interesting because I'm not like a medium or a psychic. I'm a seer. So whenever I do a gallery reading, I will take, everybody gets a little ticket. I'll give them a ticket and I'll put it all in a bowl or a hat or something. I'll draw one ticket out. Then I'll walk to that individual and I'll ask them if they want an energy reading, past life, or an actual past loved one connection. And then I will read that individual. Then I'll go back, draw another ticket, and go over on the other side of the room and read an individual. It's so cool to be able to watch and experience how I'm offering this information. And I can do it after time, after time, after time, after time. It's really kind of cool. So,
Rick, thank you so much for being on the show. We're just at the bottom of the hour already. Where can people find you, and where can they sign up for your events?
well, you go. I'm mainly on Facebook. I tried TikTok for a little while, but then I left. I'm still on there a little bit, but it's mainly on Facebook. Follow me on Facebook. I just reached over 5,000 followers, and I'm starting to grow. I used to have 7,000, but I kind of got rid of that account because I was having issues. But I'm growing. You can find all my events on there. You can send me a message. It doesn't matter. Follow me, friend me. I mean, I do like in Michigan. I have 3 big events I'm going to, so which is really really cool. It's called a Mid Michigan Paracon, and then Michigan Paracon, and then Witches Weekend. I'll be at all those doing gallery readings and some ghost hunting at the Witches Weekend. So it's going to be kind of cool. So if you guys are around Michigan, come up there, especially in the Mid Michigan Paracon is going to have all the celebrities, and the Michigan Paracon is going to have a lot of celebrities that's on TV and YouTube and stuff like that. The ghost hunters are going to be up there. Jason Hawes is going to be up there. All the actual paranormal people that's on TV is going to be up there. So come hang out, do some karaoke with us, and I'll offer some readings all day long. So.
Well, Rick, thank you so much. I'm very honored to have you on the show tonight.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time.
So the event I had been advertising for July has been canceled, unfortunately. However, I have a new event that I'm speaking at. It's October 5th. I will be at the Rock Island Roadhouse Paracon, located at the old haunted YMCA building. A lot of people don't know me, I realize, from listening to this show. I am an author of Dancing with Demons, my personal paranormal life story. I will be sharing my story and my book at this event. The lineup of speakers also includes some paranormal investigators such as Josh Purvis and Michelle LeBaron, which you guys had the pleasure of meeting last week. And already I think they have 115 vendors at this thing, which is amazing. Come out and see me at this event. Tickets can be purchased from the link on my website, www.cothomas.org. You've been listening to The Gateway, your portal to the unexplained, the mystical, and otherworldly, broadcast live from United Public Radio 107.7 FM New Orleans. See you next time.